When I was 20, I had just signed a lease for a small two-story apartment in the downtown sector. One of those older buildings with quirky, charming flaws, like original hardwood floors that complained loudly whenever you crossed them, and a deeply unsettling lack of storage. The only truly archaic feature, however, was the heavy, beige landline telephone bolted to the wall in the narrow hallway. My landlord, a superstitious woman named Mrs. Petrov, insisted it remain connected for true emergencies, claiming that cellular signals were unreliable in the core of the ancient building. Naturally, my cell phone was always my primary device, and that landline had been silent for months, gathering dust like a museum exhibit. It was a cold, rainy Tuesday night about 1 a.m., and I was trying to focus on a challenging work deadline. The only sound was the drumming of rain against the window pane and the rhythmic thump-thump of my antique radiator. Suddenly, the silence was shattered by the jarring, intrusive shriek of the landline. I actually jumped, spilling a little coffee. It rang 3 more times before I hesitantly answered, my voice tight. "Hello." Silence. Not the clean digital dead air of a hung-up call, but a heavy, breathing silence. The kind that suggested a presence, a weight of attention held captive on the other end. I was about to hang up, chalking it up to a wrong number when a voice spoke. It was slow, mechanical, and distorted, like an old answering machine tape played through water or a voice filtered through cheap electronic static. "Did you remember to lock the back door?" The question slammed into me like a physical blow. My back door, which led to a narrow, rickety fire escape, was a feature I rarely used and consequently often forgot about. I was fairly certain, locked it before settling down, but the specificity of the question, and the terrifying implication behind it, sent a jolt of pure adrenaline through me. "Who is this?" I demanded, my voice shaking. The voice didn't acknowledge my question. Instead, it played a brief, faint recording of my own voice from earlier that evening, muffled but unmistakable. It was only 3 words, "Just grab the laundry." That was me speaking to myself an hour ago as I debated whether to fetch the clean towels from the dryer. The line clicked dead. My panic was absolute. I flew to the back of the apartment, grabbing the heavy iron fireplace poker as I went. I checked the back door. It was triple locked as I had remembered. I ripped the landline cord from the wall, scattering dust bunnies everywhere. I was convinced it was an elaborate, malicious prank orchestrated by someone who had been inside my apartment recently. The thought of that recorded voice, my voice, was unbearable. I spent the next 2 days in a state of high anxiety, checking the back door obsessively. I kept the landline unplugged, a pathetic defense against the technology one no longer trusted. But on Thursday, the landline started ringing again. It was unplugged. The shrill, impossible sound sliced through my apartment, a physical violation of the peace I craved. I stood staring at the mute, useless plastic handset, heart slamming against my ribs. It rang 5 times before it stopped. I waited 5 minutes, a cold, agonizing eternity, before slowly, meticulously plugging the phone cord back into the wall socket. My hands were visibly shaking. I needed to know. The second the connection was made, the phone rang immediately, without even a moment of dialing tone. I picked it up. "You shouldn't have done that." The voice was back, slightly clearer this time, but still synthesized and flat. "Done what?" I managed to croak. "Unplugged the phone," it replied, devoid of emotion. "It makes things messy." Then it played a new recording, a clear, detailed snippet of me talking to my sister on my cell phone, a conversation that had happened only an hour prior about my work difficulties. This time there was an additional, distinct sound following my words, a faint, dry scraping sound. "What is that sound?" I whispered, tears of terror welling up. "That," the voice said, sounding sickeningly close as if it had stepped into the room, "is me outside your window." A loud, sharp smash echoed through the receiver, followed instantly by a blood-curdling, inhuman shriek, abruptly cutting off the woman's mechanical voice. I dropped the phone as if it had turned to fire. When I looked toward the closest window, the glass was intact, but on the exterior pane, there were 3 fresh, deep, crescent-shaped scratches gouged into the glass, precisely where a person might brace their hand to look in. I never heard from the caller on that landline again, but the damage was done. I moved out 3 weeks later. To this day, the sound of my own voice, when played back on a recording, gives me a visceral, choking wave of panic. Every time my cell phone rings from an unknown number, I'm terrified it will be that mechanical voice, ready to play back a recording of my most recent private moment, letting me know that the architect of my anxiety is still listening, still recording, and still waiting. It was a late night during my first semester of university. My best friend, Sarah, and I were both freshmen, navigating the confusing reality of living in separate but nearby dorms. We were on a typical late-night call, phones glued to our ears, commiserating over a brutal group project that felt designed purely to destroy student morale. I swear if I have to see Mark's arrogant face one more time, I might actually drop the class, I groaned into my headset. Tell me about it, Sarah replied, the exasperation clear in her voice. I'm seriously considering just forging a doctor's note and skipping the presentation. Suddenly, a third voice cut into the call. It wasn't the crackle of a dropped signal, the static of a cross connection, or the distortion of a bad headset. It was a completely separate, new voice, deep, resonant, and unnervingly close. Both of you stop talking. The command was absolute. Sarah and I instantly stopped mid-sentence. The authority and unnatural depth of the voice were so startling that it felt like an entity had simply materialized within the phone line itself, stealing the oxygen from our conversation. Who is that? I think my call is being hacked, Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. I don't know, it's not a noise, it's a person, I replied, feeling a cold knot form in my stomach. The voice ignored us. It spoke directly to my friend. You should not have invited him over. Sarah gasped sharply, a sudden, panicked intake of breath. This was impossible. Only she and her long-distance boyfriend, Mark, ironically not the Mark from the group project, knew he was secretly driving down 2 hours this weekend, defying dorm rules. How do you know that? Sarah cried out. I see his car parked 3 blocks from your residence, the voice continued, its tone shifting to a smug, chilling amusement. He wears the red coat, yes? The one with the tear on the sleeve. I heard frantic scrambling from Sarah's end of the line as she clearly ran to her window. It's 3 blocks away, it's not even near my dorm, she yelled, her panic now turning to genuine terror. It is close enough to watch, the voice corrected calmly. Then, with an almost imperceptible shift, the deep, echoing voice focused its full attention on me, lowering to a chilling, wet whisper. Your window is open, isn't it? Such a draft. You should cover it. My breath caught in my throat. My window was indeed open, a crack to let in the air, something I hadn't even consciously registered. I am right here, the voice said, sounding like it was breathing the same air as me, yet Sarah was still screaming my name through the phone, desperate. Can you hear me scraping the paint? A dry, horrifying scratching sound began in the background of my phone call, a light, rasping scrape of grit against wood, a sound that was immediately duplicated outside my physical window. I could hear tiny flecks of paint falling away from the sill. With a primal surge of adrenaline, I lunged and slammed the window shut, throwing the latch home. The moment the lock clicked, the strange, echoing voice vanished, and the scratching outside ceased. The call was now just Sarah, hyperventilating and crying. We eventually called the campus police. Later that night, Sarah's boyfriend's distinctive antique car, the one with the faded red paint and the small tear on the sleeve, was found keyed and vandalized 3 blocks from her dorm, exactly where the caller had described. The intruder had not come into the dorm, but he had established his absolute knowledge of our private lives and his proximity to both of us. The terrifying part wasn't the threat of violence, but the chilling certainty that he had been an invited participant in our private conversation all along. My job as a data analyst requires grueling night shifts, meaning I usually don't get home until the city is in its deepest sleep, around 4 a.m. I was accustomed to the deep quiet and the dark, finding a strange, isolated comfort in the late hours. One morning, after managing only a few hours of sleep, my phone woke me up around 11 a.m. It was an unrecognized number. I answered groggily, my brain still caught in a fog of exhaustion. Hello. Instead of a typical greeting, a woman's voice, high-pitched, sweet, and unnervingly melodic, began to sing a lullaby. It was an archaic nursery rhyme, something about a little lost lamb wandering through the dark forest, a song I hadn't heard since my own childhood. The singing was flawless, hauntingly beautiful, yet instantly filled me with dread. Who is this? Stop singing, I'm trying to sleep, I managed, annoyance mixing with creeping fear. The singing continued, but now the voice started weaving specific, descriptive details into the ancient lyrics, modifying the song to fit my reality. The lost lamb sleeps within the blue room now, where the white fan turns so slow. My bedroom walls were painted a pale robin's egg blue, and I had a distinctive antique white ceiling fan slowly and audibly rotating above my bed. I sat bolt upright, ripping the covers away. "You're in my building, aren't you?" I whispered, my eyes darting toward my closed bedroom door. The singing ceased instantly. There was a pause, a vacuum of utter silence, and then the woman let out a soft, wet, sickeningly cheerful chuckle. "No, darling. I'm not in your building. I am closer than that." The line went silent for a fraction of a second. Then a new sound bled into the receiver. The distinct, familiar creak of my specific old wooden floorboards, the exact noise they made when I walked past the entrance to my closet. My eyes snapped to the closet door, which was slightly ajar, a gap of about 3 inches. "I see the little doll you keep safe on the shelf," the voice resumed, its tone still cloyingly sweet, yet now laced with mockery. "She needs a friend. She looks lonely tucked away like that." My blood ran cold. I hadn't opened that closet in at least a month, and the small, cracked ceramic doll she referenced was tucked away on a high, dark shelf, completely invisible unless you were physically inside the closet looking up. I threw the phone away from me, scrambling off the bed. When I forced myself to look back at the closet, the gap was gone. The door was firmly shut. I slowly approached it, heart hammering. I didn't dare open it. Instead, I looked down. There, leaning against the exterior of the closed closet door frame, was the small, ceramic doll. It had been moved from its high shelf, placed on the floor, and positioned so that its painted eyes were staring directly toward my bed. I moved out the next day. The woman had not breached my home's locks, but she had definitely breached my sanctuary. To this day, the sound of a woman singing a nursery rhyme sends me into a full-blown panic attack, knowing that the sweetest melody can hide the most intimate, malicious surveillance.